Hi, thank you for tuning in to the Finding Harmony podcast with me, your host, Harmony Slater. Hi, welcome to the Finding Harmony podcast.
I'm
your host, Harmony. Hello, Nadia.
Hi, Harmony.
Nadia Stinga Rihani. I did it. How are you doing?
I'm good. How are you guys?
Good. Russell's here with us also.
Oh, hello. How are you, everyone? Good morning. Good morning. Thank you for introducing me.
Yeah, you know.
Yeah. Wow. I feel like we might have bumped elbows.
Yeah.
Back in the day. I was in Sydney and Bondi Beach. I was teaching yoga 2003. No. I'm sorry. 2000 and nowhere close.
Nowhere close.
Yeah,
2011.
2011.
No,
yeah.
2011.
10.
Joyce Yoga had
10.
opened up in Sydney, and Eileen Hall had just been fired for having an abrasive personality.
Oh.
And I was asked to sub for her, which was like, wow, you want me to sub for Eileen Hall? And so, yeah, come on in. And I was like, so I went and I took a job. And then Brett Porzio and I would wander around Bondi Beach looking for trouble. And one day we saw Eileen, and we were terrified.
Oh. There's nothing to be terrified of.
Oh, we know her, actually, madam. So we'll
talk about it.
We were scared. So did you ever stop by? Manju Joyce came. And he taught yoga in Sydney for about 3 weeks. And I'm wondering maybe if you came to class.
At the Joyce Center.
Oh,
I was the number one assistant. So I'm thinking maybe I might have just...
Number one assistant.
I would have
10.
pushed you to the side and said, stand over there, something like that.
I don't remember. I did practice with Brett when he was there.
Oh, you didn't?
Yeah, I did. But when Neil was teaching there as well...
All right, yeah. And Andrew Hillam
I wasn't
from Adelaide.
I didn't meet him there. I met him.
Famous Adelaide man.
Yes, beautiful Adelaide. No, I met Andrew in Mysore like a couple of years after that. But
right.
Did I practice with Manju that time? I possibly did. Gosh, that was a while ago. I remember.
Oh, we were in the same room together.
You got to go back
We were
15 years.
Yeah.
A lot's happened since then.
I would have been like the lanky fellow kind of standing with like his mouth, gaping open, like, what's going on?
You've obviously made a lasting impression.
Right. No, I wouldn't have made a lasting impression, but no.
Yeah, I can't even remember if I went down there. I probably would have gone and practiced with Manju. But
You practiced with Brett, but you didn't practice with me. That's so insulting.
Oh, so I was practicing somewhere else at the time, and then I'm not going to get into this story, but I've got a bit political.
Yeah.
It was at that period in Ashtanga in Sydney was just
it was a bit,
political, like things were.
Yeah.
It was incredibly political.
No need to burn any bridges here on air live.
Even at the Joyce Center, they were just going through so many teachers, like Eileen, and then David Roche was there, and Nia taught there.
Yeah.
They couldn't
Everyone
keep a
taught
teacher.
there. Yes, and then
Brett, Andrew, Russell.
Based on that experience, I was a real pain in the ass. I was really rough with the Aussies, and I was really pushy. And I was given a gig at Stanford because of that gig. People heard like, oh, he's a real ass.
Because you were rough.
I was really rough with the students. Like, we should get him.
Rough was good back then.
We should get him to teach Chrissy.
Yeah.
We should teach him,
Yeah.
So then I taught. The owner of Joyce Yoga wanted me to teach her kids, and they were going to Stanford. So I ended up teaching her kids at Stanford because of that Joyce gig.
Wow.
Yeah.
Let's talk about Nadia now.
Well, no, we are. We're in Australia. We're getting around, where she's been. I've rubbed elbows with the lady.
Yeah. Let's shift the spotlight.
Well, the spotlight, we're with her right now. We're having a conversation with this nice lady, So, how did you end up in... doing yoga in 2010 in Sydney.
No, but you have an interesting story growing up in Sydney.
I have a weird, I don't know if my childhood is so interesting growing up in Sydney. I think I had a pretty normal childhood. Like I grew up near the beach. Like all my memories are at the beach.
Yeah.
I think perhaps I grew up in a really white area, and my dad's Moroccan, so there was always like a little bit of a difference there.
Yeah.
And my mum's multilingual, so she is a translator and a language teacher. And we just had this constant stream of people coming through our house.
Mm-hmm.
Cool.
So, that's
like from all over the world?
Yeah, from
speaking different languages.
A lot of people from France, a lot of Moroccans. And it was funny, actually. Whenever someone came from Morocco to Sydney, someone would put them in contact with my dad. I don't know how it would happen.
He was like the only Moroccan man in Sydney at the time.
I don't know if there were a few, but we knew all of them.
Yeah.
And there's still not even that many. But they all ended up in our home. And I remember in the 2000 Olympics that the athletics team came over for afternoon tea.
That's amazing.
From Morocco, the Moroccan team.
What's that?
The Moroccan team came over.
The Moroccan team came over.
Good God.
That's amazing.
I know.
They came. They came to my parents' house for afternoon tea. And at the time, it just seemed really normal. And now when I look back, I realize it was really strange.
What sport was it?
The track and field, like
all of them.
The track and field,
all of the sports.
I don't think they sent a big team for lots of events, but the track and field is like I think one of them may have even won the I don't know if it was the marathon or the long distance one.
They would have won the long distance one. The Moroccans and the Kenyans are the best.
Yeah, so they came over.
Right. Did they do like a little bit in the backyard for you or anything like that?
No. There are landscapers for that.
Yeah, exactly.
Right.
No. Yeah, but they did come over for like a mint tea and
nice
pastries, I think.
The classic Moroccan mint tea.
Yeah, it's so good. Yeah, we can't get it that good in Australia. The mint is not the same. Mm.
Have you been to Morocco? Did you go and visit and spend time there?
Yeah. So I first went when I would have been 12. Wow. Yeah, so my parents, I'm one of 4 sisters, and traveling was super expensive at that time, so we never all went.
Right.
But my parents would send us all. So I got sent at 12. It did seem normal at the time, but actually now when I look back, it seems strange as well, on my own to France. And
terrifying.
Got picked up by some family friends from the airport, and then that was in Paris, and spent a couple of weeks there. I went to a school in Paris with these family friends' kids, and then went down to, I think we went down to Marseille or Montpellier or somewhere to stay with some cousins, and then flew to Morocco. And I was 12, and I was like blonde and didn't speak a word of Arabic. And, I turned up at the airport, and I was meant to be taken into this special room where my uncle would come and sign for me. I was an unaccompanied minor, but they didn't do any of that. So they just gave me my passport and kind of just let me off into Morocco. And I haven't seen my uncle since I was probably like 4. I was pretty young.
Could have been anyone.
It could have been anyone, but he did look like my dad. But he kind of came up to me and said, like, "You're coming with me." So I was like,
"Okay." Fantastic.
Oh,
so that was the first time I went, and then I went back again when I was in my 20s, and then I've been back a couple of times. We took our daughter when she was 11 months old, because Gabriel, my husband, he's half Swedish, half Spanish, and his dad is from the Canary Islands. And Gabriel was born there, and that's actually right next to Morocco.
Yeah.
So actually, I think it was like a 1-hour flight or something to go between. Yeah. So we went to the Canary Islands via Morocco, and so I haven't been back since then. I'm
amazing,
not
though.
back to 2 kids.
That's a lot, right?
My dad used to smuggle hash from Morocco into Spain in the 70s. Yeah,
Seriously?
he did. Yeah. He was. I saw him recently, and I asked, and he was saying, I've been thinking that I could probably make a lot of money running a pot shop now that it's legal, but pot really isn't my thing. It's like hash. Actually, I really know hash.
Oh my gosh.
And I was like, he would put it in the wheel bed of his Harley and inside the tire, and he would pack the whole thing with Moroccan hash, and that's how he'd make his living in Spain and Germany, just kind of bumming around selling hash.
I don't know if you're telling the truth or not.
He did that for 3 years until he got deported.
Are you serious?
Yeah. Yeah.
The 70s were a different time.
Yeah. And then he did the same thing in Detroit and met my mom. And my mom was selling dope as well. And they both got into the newfangled stuff, the cocaine. And then they got busted for that in 76, which was the largest cocaine bust in Detroit city history at the time.
Wow.
We're quite proud of that.
Another claim to claim. Yeah.
Really. Yeah, so were your parents into drugs?
No.
No, I don't think so.
Oh.
My parents met in France and then came back to Australia. No, I don't think so.
How'd they meet? But they met on drugs?
No,
I don't think so. No. My dad was a tailor and my mum was working for the Australian Embassy. And,
a tailor.
Yeah.
Because when I read this, I read traitor. Your mother was a teacher. Your father was a traitor from Morocco. No, it says tailor. It does. Taylor. It says tailor. I misread. So he had a sartorial interest.
He was a pattern maker in Paris, and he also worked in London. Wow. And then they met in Paris, and he moved back here, and he ran a menswear store. Selling fine menswear and then and importing things from Europe. So he went back quite a lot. Like every year he'd go back and go on these buying trips and then
Do you guys know about the sartorius? The sartorius muscle in your leg? Do you know about that?
What about
Tell us about it.
Well, no, the sartorius, it comes from having a sartorial interest. Because the tailors in the old days, they would sit in Baddha Konasana to sew their clothes.
Oh, I don't think my dad did that.
No, he didn't.
No, that was in the old days.
Your dad didn't sit in Baddha Konasana to tailor clothes? No?
Times have changed.
Times have changed.
He was selling fine menswear.
Well, yeah, but you gotta like sit there and really like sew.
They have machines.
He had machines, yeah.
Even in the 70s, they had machines.
Probably he wasn't like doing so much of the work at that time. The sewing. He was doing the selling and the measuring. And
he's a kind
of
front
I think they had
he was
machines
a front
in the
man.
70s. I think they had machines in the 70s too.
Oh.
They're called vintage now, but
vintage.
The ones that
vintage machines.
Oh yeah,
the pedals.
My mom had one of those.
Yeah,
and then they're like part of the table. The old ones are like built in, the really old ones are like built into the table.
I know.
Like a wheel on the side. You would have seen them. They're like.
Did your dad make all your clothes?
No, none of them.
None of them.
Well, you must have had it really very difficult growing up then, not having any clothes, growing up in Australia. And what did you do? You got into theater? They do a lot of like nude modern stuff in the new theater, don't they?
I studied theater at university, and that's how I got into yoga. So these guys came to run some workshop, and I don't even remember what we were doing, but we were like jumping around the room and doing all this breathwork stuff. I really don't know. And it was just so incredible. So then I was talking to them afterwards, and they were like, no, what we do, they must have been from some commune. And they're like, yeah, you can come and stay with us in this place. I didn't do that. I just went and started exploring.
They're like, yeah, come join our hippie commune.
I don't know how they got to the university, but it was really fun.
When I was in art school, they're always asking me to get naked, and I had to get naked for stuff all the time.
You went to like a weird art school.
I did. So you didn't have to do any of that.
No, we didn't do that. Yeah.
We're a lot more prudish in Canada and Australia because we're British.
Oh yeah, you're British.
Oh no, we're British too. Australia's a bit prudish. Yeah, totally.
Prudish.
Yeah, we're like more prudish in Canada and Australia. We're very self-conscious.
They're always asking us to take our clothes off.
Yeah, we have a lot more. Yeah, in the States, you guys are all over the place.
Oh, I can always see my parents naked growing up. Did you see your parents naked growing up? I always did.
Oh gosh. No. Okay. Enough about you. Why are we talking about you all the time?
She's having a laugh. She's having a nice time. So you studied theater.
I studied theater. And then I did the last year of my degree in Italy at the University of Bologna. And
they have nice suits there. Yeah.
They had a really nice theater department. And then I went on to work with a theater company in Italy and toured.
Amazing.
We toured the country.
Did you speak Italian?
I did speak Italian.
Oh, goodness.
Oh.
Yeah, I did. So we all learnt languages in our family, and language was kind of not really a choice, but I did rebel against the French.
You said no
French, and I was like, I'm not going to be like those other sisters of mine. I'm going to learn Italian. So I studied Italian.
Were you the youngest?
Third. I was second youngest.
Third. Second youngest.
You can get sort of lost as the third one. You can sort of hide. Yeah.
Yeah, I didn't get to hide, but I did feel like I got a bit lost, I have to say.
Yeah, the two middle ones are like
Was it all girls? The four girls?
All girls, the four tiny girls.
You were like the little women.
That's maddening.
I think we're pretty full on.
Yeah. No kidding.
I would have thought that maybe like boys would be a total mystery at that point. Like you just can't even imagine what they're like.
No, I mean there's always boys around.
Boys are always coming around.
Yeah. Boys aren't really a mystery.
But you had a brother,
not like girls.
No, you had a brother.
No. I think girls are like more mysterious to boys than boys are to girls. Boys are like so very straightforward.
I couldn't
agree.
There's like two modes.
Yeah.
There was just always girls in the house, kind of knocking, and they were trying to find out more about me. And I was just like,
you were the moody, mysterious one. There's always one in 100.
I really just would rather have kept my clothes on for the whole experience, but they never would let me, even as never would let me.
All right.
So
we're going to call this Nadia actually wrestled.
No, this isn't about me, Harm. Come on, it's called Finding Harmony. So you were kind of lost, and then you found harmony doing yoga.
You put that in every episode?
I do, in fact, yeah. I try to do that.
So, no, I started practicing yoga then, and it was more just for fun. It felt good. It felt really good. Yeah. And I was traveling around. I was traveling a lot. I was traveling around the world, and I would sort of do it on my own in my living room. I'd practice on my own.
Right.
And then when I came back from overseas, I found ashtanga. I stumbled into it.
How
does that happen?
Yeah.
It was just in a place that had lots of different types of yoga.
Okay.
And there was this ashtanga class, and I didn't realize it was different to the other classes. And I just went right in.
Yeah.
And was
did you love it?
Yeah, it was full on, but I loved it. Like I could tell straight away it was something different. And then from then on, I never really did anything else. I never practiced anything else.
What teacher was that? Was that Dan or was it Trevor?
That was Trevor. But Dan used to practice a bit with Dan as well. And I used to go on these. Dan used to run these little weekend retreats when he moved out of Sydney.
Yeah,
at his house in the Central Coast, and they were just awesome. And
for the listeners at home, that's Dan Fanthorpe.
Dan Fanthorpe. Yeah,
from Sydney.
Osteopath. Well, he lives in New Zealand now. Yeah.
Oh, well, you can find him in New Zealand if you're listening at home.
Yeah. Yeah, and then I was practicing mostly with Trevor, and and he had this little group going that he was apprenticing under him, and so I started doing that. And I was working in a job that I just hated. Trevor
Tanya.
Yeah.
Tanya, okay.
He's old school.
Oh.
Yeah. And then, I just hated my job. I really hated it. And this practice just kind of gave my life meaning. I'd come back from overseas. I'd been working for these theatre companies and been traveling, and I couldn't get any work. And I went to work in recruitment, and I did it for 1 year. But I hated it.
What were you recruiting?
I was recruiting people to work in sales and marketing.
Oh, amazing.
Oh, wow.
It was hardcore.
That's what I do for my mom. Not to make it all about me, but it's actually, my mom recruits physicians to hospitals. And for the last, actually,
2 years,
off and on since I was 18, I've helped my mom recruit for her company. Whenever I was down on my luck, and I am down on my luck at the moment.
This is really, really salesy. It was really full on, and I found I just felt really almost destroyed by this job. And,
it's emotionally taxing.
Yeah, it was taxing in all senses. It really was. Going into the city, it was just the environment was really intense. So I was practicing yoga like every morning, and then in the evenings I would help out with Trevor, and then I was apprenticing under him, and then I ended up leaving that job, and I got a job more in arts and entertainment. And at that time, I started to take on some of his classes when he went traveling, and then it just sort of unfolded. You know, I just got offered a heap of classes and decided to leave my job.
Amazing.
And then that became my thing.
When we met Mysore, I think it must have been 2007.
You met her back in the day?
2008?
No. It was much later. It was 2012.
2012?
Oh.
Okay.
Yeah, you had...
I had Jediah then.
You had Jediah. He was really little.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, he was like really almost 2, not quite.
Yeah, he's as tall as me now.
No. I was trying to remember how
cute.
Yeah.
He's a big boy.
He's taller than me now.
Yeah.
No way.
Okay, so 2012, but you had your own studio then, right?
Yeah, so I'd been practicing since 2005, I think.
Yeah.
Practicing yoga since 2001, and then practicing ashtanga since 2005, 2004, 2005, something like that. And that opened up a little studio, and it was half off the back of all that political stuff that was happening in Sydney. I couldn't deal with it, and I was like, you know what? I just want to teach myself.
Yeah.
So I opened up this little sala, and I had a couple of other teachers teaching there, and it was so nice when it started. It was so nice to have a little studio at that time, you know, in history, before yoga became, I don't know, yoga in Sydney just exploded after that.
Yeah.
And it was, I loved having that little sala. I loved it, and it grew. Like I moved into a slightly bigger space, and I had a Mysore program going on in the mornings, and some other teachers teaching hatha in the evenings, and it was really, really beautiful.
Yeah.
But I let go of it eventually after, when Indy was about 3. I just couldn't find the balance between running and that school and teaching and being a mom. I found that really taxing.
Yeah.
So,
it's not for anyone that isn't independently wealthy. It's not. You kind of have to start from that place.
And if you start from that place, it's a little easier for sure.
I just said this to the last lady we interviewed, but like, it really helps if you start out as a pensioner whose home is paid for, and you just teach in the basement.
Amazing.
And then the students pay $400 a month, and you never advertise. That's the ideal.
Yeah, exactly.
That's it. That's the ideal,
like, right?
Yeah.
And if you're not doing that, it's hard. It's really
so hard.
Yeah.
So we sold out, and we were, and at that point we got offered to teach a couple of different Mysore programs. I think there was one we're looking at in China. I'm glad we didn't do that, because it was just before COVID that we sold. And but we went we went to Europe, and we taught for a little while, and then while we were there, we got offered a teaching gig back in Sydney, And
oh, cool.
Yeah, and it was well paid, and it was just sort of, you know, it was like if we'd have waved a magic wand and said what we wanted, that was what we wanted. So we came back, you know, really excited, and then and then I taught
hit
one
by a
class,
car.
and then I got hit back.
Oh my gosh!
So, yeah. So that's sort of been the journey ever since. It's been really full on since that time.
So that morning, you're on your little, or afternoon, I don't know, but you're on your little scooter, and you're changing lanes, and some guy just took a hard right and just hit you out of the blue.
Yeah, I was going straight. He was at a standstill. He was turning right into a driveway, and he was quite elderly. I would say probably shouldn't have been driving. And he just decided to turn right when I was coming past. I was at the front of the traffic, like I wasn't hidden. Anyway, I got thrown into the air, apparently, and rolled over multiple times. And that was the last thing I remember, was like rolling. I remember rolling along the road, and I remember thinking, I'm okay. And then I must have gotten knocked out.
Yeah.
Because then when I woke up, there were like, I don't know, there must have been like 10 people just, I was lying on my back, 10 people just on top of me saying like, what's your name? You know, the things you say in your first aid.
Professionals?
And I just done
like
my first aid the day before. So I was like hearing them basically go through the script of what I learned the day before, and I couldn't really respond. But I was like, wow, they're really good. I remember thinking that they're good. I remember thinking that. I wonder if I could remember all this stuff in the moment. Anyway, and I got taken to hospital, and I spent 3 weeks in hospital.
Wow.
And
you'd broken your pelvis in 4 places?
Smashed my pelvis.
Yeah.
Taken chunks of flesh out of my feet, and
my God.
But my pelvis has never healed, so I still have a broken pelvis, but I live with it now. Anyway, I had spent 3 weeks in hospital, including a time in a rehab hospital, and then went home and didn't walk for some 3 months or something at all, maybe longer. And then I walked with crutches, and then eventually I had a walking stick, which I would have had for almost a year. And then eventually learned to walk again and to start my whole life again. It felt like it was like a ground zero day that day. Like everything started again from there. It was so full on, and just changed everything in my world.
And you had 2 children at this time, or
I had
just
one.
your daughter? Okay.
Just one. So I had wanted to start trying for another, but we waited then another year or so before. Wasn't the time. Yeah,
you had to heal.
I had to heal.
Oh my gosh.
But then eventually made this decision with the healing and having another baby. Like I knew my pelvis wasn't going to heal, and I knew that the journey was really long. And being, how old was I? Like 39.
Yeah.
I knew, I don't really have time to heal.
The window's short.
So, my window's short. And so we just decided to do it anyway, even though I had a broken pelvis. So I did carry the second pregnancy on a broken pelvis, and which was just as painful as it sounds like. But
that's incredibly painful.
And then have the most darling little boy called John. And and so it's just taken me on this journey that I really never thought I would go on, and coming from this place where everything always seemed to work out so well. I don't know how else to describe it. I don't want to say I had a charmed life, but it was like I never really understood what problems were, I think, until that happened. I just couldn't have conceived of what struggles people might go through. And
you had a post I looked at this morning on Instagram, and it was you described how grateful you felt, and you had just taken 3 steps, and your first 3 steps in like a walker, and I was really kind of touching how how you could be in such dire straits and be so low, and yet have the audacity to be grateful.
Yeah, well, you have nothing else. You have to be grateful. You have to be grateful. I mean, when you're lying there and you really think you may not ever walk again, you have to be grateful. You have to be grateful.
Yeah.
Because what else have you got? You know, you just have to. And those 3 steps, I can't even remember that, but those 3 steps would have been really they would have been a symbol for something else, you know, that I was going to walk, that I was going, you know,
you were going to walk, actually.
I didn't really know I was going to walk. I was going to be okay. And
wow.
Yeah. It was pretty intense and quite blurry, that whole period of being in hospital. And it was really traumatic. And the hospital I was in I don't know if you know it, Russell, but in King's Cross, do you know that area?
A little bit.
So it was like a lot of drug addicts and things in the hospital, and I felt really vulnerable not being able to walk. So I was pretty happy to get out of there. And and I was pretty happy to move on to the next hospital, and I was so happy to go home. Yeah. And eventually now I can kind of look back and be grateful in some ways for the whole experience, even though it's totally brought me to my knees. I can look back and think there has been a lot of good and evolution that's come out of that.
What do you feel like is the biggest thing that you've, taken away from having to like relearn everything again from the beginning?
I think that that a lot of it just doesn't matter.
Yeah.
I think that a lot of the things I used to worry about, they just don't matter. And and I was really worried about, things like losing my practice and stuff like that I was so hooked on. And then I realize now that it just doesn't matter. It's really nice, but it just doesn't matter. And that there's just so many more important things in life. And the other thing is the empathy and the understanding of what other people are going through. I don't think I quite understood that before. I don't think I had that in me. Mm-hmm. I think I thought I understood struggle, and I thought I understood, how some people go through difficult periods in their lives and are hit with things that they can't plan for. I couldn't have understood that in a way that I do now.
Amazing.
You described a couple of your relations that had been they've been a rock for you. You described your relationship, your mom's support, and I'm sure your husband's support as well. I wonder if you could speak to that. And that kind of carves out a lot of space out of their time as well to come and spend all day with you.
Yeah. So actually, my mom just came. Gabriel was in India running a retreat.
Oh my God.
Right up northern India. Well, he left the next morning. That's right. He wasn't in India the day it happened. He left the next morning. We were both meant to be running a retreat, actually.
Right. Yeah.
And we decided he should go because the students were already there, and it was like, so my mom, so he left, and my mom came and took our daughter and basically just took over. I just couldn't have done it without my mom. I just couldn't have done it without her. I don't know how. I've often thought, like, how would you do this if you were somewhere where you didn't have family? Like, what actually would you do? I don't know. I don't know how people do it. But my mom is just amazing. She'll just get on with it. She's just that kind of person that will just, something needs to be done and she will do it. She's always in service.
Yeah.
She really is. And then thankfully in Australia, like, we are quite well supported in these these circumstances. Like, we have an insurance, a prerequisite insurance that covers all the care that you need at home. So cleaners and then people to come and babysit when you need babysitters and things for when I move back in.
Yeah, that's great.
Yeah. So that was all taken care of and continues to be now as I go to appointments they continue to pay for babysitting and care and all of my therapy and everything.
We're going on 4 years now, right?
Yeah,
4 years ago.
4 years. Yeah.
And so you were in the hospital for 3 weeks, which doesn't sound like a long time. I think maybe you could have spent more time there. But how long? Then you immediately started physio, and like you're still in physio.
I'm still in physio. So there's not really a lot of point staying in the hospital. There wasn't really a lot they can do. It's like you have broken bones, you just need to rest. You know, they don't operate on a pelvis. They rarely operate on that. It usually does heal. So I got sent home just for bed rest, and then started physio pretty soon after. I can't remember how many weeks. And then I'm still in physio now. But that's just really evolved from learning how to walk and just do functional movements like that to now just trying to build back the strength that I'd lost from the accident. So it's brought me into this. I'm in a different physio now where I'm doing the strength training and functional training, and like a lot of it could be described as like HIIT workouts, but with a physio, you know, just trying to build up my strength. And I really enjoy it, you know, I enjoy it. And it's the sort of thing I never was interested in before. And it's fun. It's fun to challenge my body in that way. But yeah, I'm still in physio now. I have 3 physio appointments a week.
Oh, amazing.
So
what's the mechanical issue with the pelvis now? I mean, is it like a sheared bone? Is it a torn labrum? Like, what's actually?
No, I just have on the pubic rami. If you know the anatomy, just sort of along the front here, I've just got a big fracture from top to bottom. It hasn't healed, so it's a non-union. And then I've got another one around the back near that sort of bone, that bony part of your bottom. So it doesn't stop me sort of walking, and it's not like a joint, but it's just a structural weakness that I've got. So what I'm working on with the physio is building up the strength around that, so that to kind of compensate for the weakness, the inherent weakness. Yeah.
Did you have a cesarean with your second baby?
I had a cesarean.
Because I was like, I don't know how you would give birth with a broken pelvis. That sounds torturous.
I didn't want to have a cesarean. I really fought that.
Yeah.
I really fought that internally right up to the moment of it.
Yeah.
I couldn't get my head around it, and and it made me angry. It made me angry that something was taken from me. So you know, you were saying before I made that post about feeling so grateful. It's just been this real roller coaster of feeling grateful and feeling angry and just going up and down. And I think that's sort of what trauma is and what grief is in a lot of ways, which is how I would describe the feeling of what I've gone through, is like grieving a life that I no longer have. And and there've been moments of up and down. But I had a cesarean with Dara. And you know, he came out fine.
Totally.
That's the thing, is you've got a happy, loving, healthy baby. And
I knew that before going in. I knew that, like, on a, you know, in
did they tell you? Level. Did they say this is like? Was it planned? Like, were they kind of prepping you for it? Yeah.
It was,
but you were like, no, I'm gonna do it. I'm gonna do it.
Oh no, I wasn't. And especially he came. I had him early because I couldn't walk anymore.
My God.
I just couldn't do it. So I went in to see the obstetrician, and he was like, "No, I think you can have this baby next week. I don't think we're going to push you out any longer." Like, they just waited up. So and he came out. He's just fine. So
because the weight on the pelvic floor gets really, really intense. And so if you already have like a fracture in your pelvis, I can't even you wouldn't be able to walk.
I couldn't walk, but I could swim, and I would go for these ocean swims every morning.
Oh, amazing.
And swim from one end of this area where we live to the other, and that was just heaven. It's so good because we were just weightless, and it was amazing. Yeah, I couldn't walk much, but I could swim and did.
Walk to the ocean, walk home.
It's really beautifully said, talking about grieving for like this other life that you used to have. not to talk about us again, but it's just, it is something that we're, paying attention to, that we're noticing that we're in a bit of a grieving cycle for, we're just not 27. I'm 48, and it's just not the same. And our lives are completely different. And you kind of have to, you can be grateful for things, but you also have to just grieve what was lost and remember it. Try and remember it fondly, but it's still like he's dead.
Yeah, he's not dead. He's changed. But and move on. I think that's the other piece to it. It's like you've got to be grateful for it and grieve it, and also remember it fondly and let it go.
Yeah,
because it just eats you up if you don't.
Yeah,
that feeling it'll swallow you if you just walk around wishing things were how they were.
Yeah.
Being in your 20s is fun. I know.
I think there's an element to our tautology where we look at we're trained to look at the world as a kind of a hologram. That we're consciousness made manifest, and we're encouraged to look at our world as a kind of theater that we're here to observe, right? So it's like watching a show, like a favorite show, and like Neighbors. But then, it's over. I was going to say Succession, but Neighbors is probably a better example. But it's not over. It's still going on. But it's like at some point, is it still going on? It's over, and then it's it. It's like, oh, I really like that show. That was a good show. It's over.
Well, I guess, and almost like when you're watching The Crown.
Yeah.
You watched The Crown when every time a new actor came in.
Yeah.
To play the old actor.
Oh, right. Yeah.
Exactly. And every time, I do not like having my accident. It's a different level of grief. But I did grieve the former actor every time.
Yeah, I quite liked him, or I quite liked her. She was good.
Yeah.
The young queen was nice.
The young queen was the best.
I remember the young queen. I'm no longer the young queen. I'm now the older queen.
Yeah.
But not the oldest queen.
Not the oldest queen, but I'm no longer the young queen. And doors are closed to me now, as the middle queen.
That's a beautiful example, because it is like that in a way. Yeah, and the thing that I loved about that show too is it showed even her struggling with like this middle age time of life. And I'm like, oh my God, it's the universal struggle.
It is.
It is a struggle. It's like it's a pretty intense period of life that you don't really know it's going to happen, and all of a sudden it's there. And
I know.
I don't know. I personally find it really intense. This particular age. There's a lot of pressure. And
yes,
the parenting of children, the aging of your parents, the work pressures are still there. I mean,
this
whole there.
This whole TikTok thing, it's just it's too much.
And then there's pressure to show up on TikTok.
I'm not gonna do that.
Are you on TikTok?
I'm not gonna have a TikTok account on top.
I don't have a TikTok.
Not after what you made me do with Instagram. I'm not gonna fucking go through that again.
No, but it's true. It's really, I don't know. And I don't know about you, Nadia, but I remember, I don't know. It never really crossed my mind when I was younger. I never thought about it.
They were just old
You never prepare for it. You're always going to be young.
Yeah.
Yeah, or like really old.
What's going to happen to you? Yes.
Young or really old.
Think about this period. But you know what's really interesting is I feel like you get to this age and you become almost invisible.
Totally.
I don't know if you feel 100%. That way.
I'm with you.
Because no one sees you. And maybe that's why you didn't think about it when you were young. Because
I think so.
There was cellophane,
That's a great point.
Yeah. Women talk about that a lot. That's a saying. That's an old wives' saying that's gone from generation to generation for thousands of years. It's like, you hit a certain age, you become invisible. Women have always said that.
You do feel that way.
Yeah.
That's how it is. You're there, you're almost just like there serving other people.
Yeah.
And therefore lose a big piece of yourself.
Yeah.
It's easy to lose yourself in that.
Yeah.
Yeah, and there's something kind of beautiful in that. I mean, there's something very yogic about that, right?
Yeah.
Like realizing that it's not about you, and like
how unimportant you are.
Yeah, how unimportant you are, and that this whole game up until like this point of losing yourself in the act of serving other people was really about you, right?
Yeah.
And I think having kids kind of like brings that to the surface, where you're like, oh, the whole world doesn't revolve around me. Amazing. That's like its own kind of awakening and transition, and is really challenging, but you're still young for the most part in a weird way at that stage
compared to Nan.
And then you throw in, like you said, like kids growing and activities and income needing to be made and aging parents and for some of us, if you're lucky, aging grandparents, and all the different things and people needing things, and you're just like, okay, wow.
I know. But I do think, because people used to have kids much younger. So I think maybe it wasn't all happening all at once back in the day. I had my second child I was almost 40 when he was born.
Right.
So then, it was all happening all at once. And a lot of women are having children at that age too,
Totally.
But then there are, if you have your child at 20, then by the time you're going through this, they're grown up, and that pressure is gone.
Yeah.
If you've had your third child at 20.
Your third child at 20.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, there is some wisdom to having children young.
I often think that there's I wouldn't have changed my youth, but I often think that being really naive, having children when you're really naive, is kind of very appealing. You just go for it, You haven't gotten that independent and set in your ways yet, so no one's really changing your routine because you don't have one. And, you can survive without sleep. It's all of that stuff.
It's true. It's true. I was thinking about that actually just today. It's funny we're talking about this. I was thinking about women that wait to have children, even into their 40s, like 42, 43. And I was thinking, oh my gosh, I cannot imagine having a baby right now because I'm so tired already.
And I think that's what it is. I'm so much more tired this time around. I mean, I had Indy when I was 35, and the difference in those 5 years is so much. Yeah, it's huge. People do have children up till they're 50.
It's amazing. I mean, go for it. But wow, I'm like, and then I was thinking and then I was exactly thinking about that, like women that have kids in their 20s, and I was like, man, I think you'd have a lot of energy.
Yes. And they can run around.
You'd have a lot less wisdom at the same time.
Well, you make different mistakes, but it doesn't matter. You're going to make mistakes anyway, right?
They don't. I think that's the whole thing, is that you realize it doesn't matter that much. You're not making really bad mistakes.
No.
I think you probably end up doing a lot more of baby shaking.
I don't think so.
Never shake a baby.
No.
You don't.
As my mom said, because my mom had me when she was 25. And she said, you just grow up with your kids. It's just a different experience. Like, you're not growing up. You grow up with them.
You're going to have to cut
this out.
All the but she's still a child.
Well, that's from childhood trauma. That's something different.
I don't know if that's true. It might have been because she had her kids too young.
I don't think so. Your mom had kids young as well.
She was absolutely terrified of the birth experience. And she said she just looked down at what was going on. She said, no, I'm not doing this. You can cut him out, but I'm not giving birth to this thing.
Really?
Yeah.
And she had a cesarean?
No. Oh yeah, yeah, big both times. Yeah, and it
so
was
when
like
I
no.
had Indy, I was like, I said to the nurse, she said, "Are you ready?" And I was like, "Oh no, I'm not ready." She's like, "Well, sorry, but you are." And I was like, "I don't think I'm ready."
I don't think I'm ready.
I'm sorry. And not only that, but I was like, I think I need to have a little rest first. But also, I'm not ready to be a mom. That was how I felt.
Oh, yeah.
I don't know if
it's a
I
metaphor.
don't know if this is for me, actually.
Yeah. I think I'm not gonna do this after all. Yeah.
It's like, too late.
It's a funny metaphor though, like to say that, like, you know, to say I'm not ready to do this, and the baby comes and it means that I'm going to be a mom. There's a metaphor to that transformation, just like being hit by an old man in a car is a metaphor for the change in life.
Yeah,
in some ways,
happen.
In some ways,
happen,
yeah,
like
it's gonna happen.
This is how,
yeah, wow.
And you do grieve yourself. You do totally grieve your former life.
Yeah, 100%. So, what's life like for you now, though? Are you back to practicing?
I will go ahead.
Yeah, I want to know. Did you go back to yoga, or are you just training?
No, I am practicing. I have been practicing. Like, I would say I've been practicing almost the whole time. It's just different. So, like, and it's also a time thing now, because I've got all these other physical requirements that I need to do, these physio, strength training, and all this other stuff. So my practice I usually do at lunchtime. I take it quite easy these days. Yeah, you know, I do what I need.
I like a little lunchtime practice.
Yeah, so my body's nice and warm. It's nice.
Yeah,
and I just don't
like
put the pressure on.
I like a nice lie-in.
He likes a 4 p.m. practice.
I can't do that.
I was so tired of waking up at 3 o'clock. Like, and I'm like, if I can wake up at 8 o'clock now, I feel so good and so much better about everything.
I look forward to my kids letting me sleep until 8 o'clock. That sounds really
you're not there yet.
I'm still in the shit, but I hear you, Russell. I'm exactly the same. I don't sacrifice my sleep anymore for practice. I just don't do it because I really value my sleep. I love sleep. I wish I knew how much I love sleep before, when I could sleep. Yeah. But so I do practice. I practice just about every day that I can. I do like a little lunchtime practice, maybe 45 minutes. Sometimes I surprise myself and I get on the mat and I can do quite a lot. And then sometimes I just take it really easy, but it's really, I just listen to what I need. And and I'm starting a new career in nutrition. I'm studying nutrition. And I'm focusing on all this stuff that we're talking about. So really, this period of life that we're talking about is perimenopause, and so I'm focusing on nutrition and how it can help with all the symptoms of perimenopause and prepare you for an easier menopause.
Let's dig into that conversation, because Harvey's done. Actually,
no, we don't know.
She's done. She's finished.
It hasn't been a year yet, but. 45.
You feel good? Or you feel how do you feel?
It's been rough since 42, I think.
Yeah, right.
I mean, there's been a lot going on in the world as well, so
yeah.
Wait, what are you talking about? Like how old you are?
Yeah.
You're not 45.
This year.
You're not 45.
Yeah.
You're turning 40 like 3 or something.
No.
You're not 45.
Yeah.
No, you're not. Let me see. You're 44 right now?
Yeah, finishing.
Is that like India time again? Or like, what do you mean?
Yeah, I'm in my 44th year.
But that means you're 43.
It actually means I'm 44.
I can't figure it out. No, she's...
No, 79. So
79.
Starting 45.
No, you
44.
No, you turned 44 this year, because I'm born in 1980 and I turned 43
Yeah, that's what I thought. You're 43, turning 44.
45.
Don't do the India thing, please.
What?
No.
I'm in my 44th year.
No.
Yes.
No.
Oh,
You're turning 44.
The reason I know is just because I was born in 1980, so what I'm turning is always the same number as the year. So when I was 0, it was 1980. When I was 1, it was 81. When I was 2, it was 82.
But see, so you'd already finished 1 when you turned 1.
Oh yeah, you're in your 44th year. You're turning 44.
No, don't do that. Nobody at home.
I'm really confused. What's going on?
Nobody at home. I'm turning 48. You're turning 44. You're not turning 40.
I don't really like to count even numbers, so it kind of depends.
I have a couple of questions.
No, but we're talking about perimenopause.
Oh, you want to? Because I have some questions more about her, not about you.
No, we want to talk about.
We're not talking about you anymore. We're talking about her.
No, we want to talk about what she knows. She's helping me.
Okay.
Let's talk about
so
harmony.
What I'm more doing is this period can extend for a really long time. So for
it can be like 10 years, right?
Yeah. So it can start in your 30s, and you need to prepare. You need to prepare yourself for what's coming up. And if you can do all the groundwork in your perimenopausal years, it can have an effect on your menopausal years and make them a little bit easier, make that transition easier. So a lot of that is diet and movement, and also all of this stress that we're talking about.
Yeah,
it's also sort of a symptom of perimenopause and menopause, and it's really all tied in together because it's something that affects women physiologically, but also environmentally, everything that's going on around them. So it's managing all of these aspects of your life. This brain fog and this feeling tired is a symptom of menopause and perimenopause, but it's also a symptom of being
stress,
run down, and
We thought it was COVID. We thought the brain fog
it is also
COVID.
A symptom of COVID. That's why it's all very confusing.
Yeah, it's a gray area. Yeah, but I'm studying at the moment, and I'm looking into nutrition and how we can best support our bodies through that period, and then what movement patterns we need to do to support through that period, because women also really lose their muscle mass in these years as well, like our body. So we need to do a lot more to
strength training.
Strength training. To help our bodies stay strong and support our bones, and
I like
as
it.
we move forward. So
what is J-Lo doing? She's 50.
What's J-Lo doing?
And there's a question there about what she's doing.
She probably has a personal trainer that she works with daily, because that's what all the rich stars do.
Do you want me to be your personal trainer? Do you want me to do that? I'm here.
But I think just doing, you also don't want to push too hard. So, and this is why I don't push in my yoga practice anymore, because I work pretty hard when I'm doing this strength training, and I think you just need a bit of balance. You actually really need rest. You actually need rest. It's super important, maybe more than anything else.
That's kind of the thing. I think too, when you're going through this, stage of life, this transition stage where you really do need rest, you kind of have to give yourself permission to take rest. Otherwise,
you have to force yourself
I think you burn out, or you get sick, other problems happen.
Yes. Yeah, that's it. Yeah. That's exactly right. And these are the years when that is most likely to happen for women.
There's so many things you're trying to keep track of.
Too many,
moms and kids and cars and homes and animals.
Schedules.
And then you got 2 dogs for some reason.
And then you find your brain just doesn't function the same way that it used to.
No, I know. I was saying I have trouble finding nouns quite often. I'm like,
I know it.
That person who does this thing. That's what
an optometrist.
An optometrist. You can describe it. Exactly.
It's like the one who looks at the eyes.
And
what did you notice?
Mom brain.
Mom brain. It is like that a bit. Right after you give birth, and you're like, brain's like rewiring.
Or even when you're pregnant.
It's meant to be actually a massive upgrade.
Yeah, great. I'm looking forward to it.
No, but that mum brain is actually a massive upgrade. You actually become more intelligent.
Awesome.
It's like it's the biggest brain upgrade, I think, in your life. It's like you tune into things in a different way.
Yeah, there's more neural circuits being created.
Yeah. So you know, what you think is a dumbing down is actually just thinking about things that are important.
Maybe that's what's happening now.
I hope so.
Maybe we're getting upgraded to like some spiritual awareness or something. Some kind of.
I think it's really important to keep your brain active, you know?
Yeah.
At this time. Because it all starts now. It all just,
yeah.
You need to
you have to like keep learning.
So some strength training and some crosswords. What else can Harmony do?
Strength training and crosswords.
It's like, well, it's eating a lot of. Now I can't even find the word. Cruciferous vegetables. So things like broccoli and
carnivorous, right? That's what you said?
No.
Herbivorous.
No, those dark green leafy vegetables.
Dark green leafy vegetables. And they help balance your hormones. And things like maca powder and having a really protein-rich diet, like eating a lot of protein. So whether that's eating animal protein or eating, you know, lots of pulses like, and things like that. It's really important.
Blood sausage.
or beef liver. One of our friends was eating beef liver.
Oh my god!
The fellow from Ohio, but he is not going through menopause.
We feed our dogs beef liver.
She likes it,
but no, I don't really go for the animal products, but I love protein. I've noticed that, powder. Like, especially at this point in my life, like, or tofu. I eat so much, like, tofu, tempeh, cheese. I can't be, like, I really, in my heart, I'm vegan, but I really, like, cannot leave the cheese because it's, like, fat and protein, and that's
the opposite of in your heart, vegan.
I also love cheese. And I like Greek yogurt. I love it. It's also high protein.
Like the really like.
Tell you how many times we get people on the show promoting a vegan book, and then we talk about it upstairs. Like, what a great episode, chewing on cheese. Like, what a great episode that was.
So far though, we're not so far. Come on, like we don't have milk. We just have cheese in the fridge.
Yeah,
like it's the one product that is just.
Well, we have eggs. I eat eggs.
Yeah, once in a while we do have eggs as well.
Yeah,
but we don't have them in our fridge very often. But like every once in a while, every once in a while we have the yogurt
for like maintaining your strength as well. So
the protein, right?
Powder. Like I'm having protein powder. I love it. So good.
Yeah. Like in a smoothie in the morning.
In a smoothie or like with chia seeds and Greek yogurt.
Nice.
Yeah. So I'm just getting into that, all of it now, and there's a whole lot of things you can do. But you've got to pay attention to it early on. I think that's the key. Mm-hmm. I mean, particularly if you're destined to have a long perimenopause, it's like, you know, it's quite a difficult period. So, and it's also a period that we tend not to take care of ourselves due to all of the things that
all the things.
All the demands of life. It's so hard to like
and
all of a sudden.
Other people.
Yeah, fit in like, you're like, my 2 hours of self-care that I used to do really regularly is down to like 20 minutes.
I know. But I think, I don't know, I find like that 20 minutes is so important. That's all I get to. I mean, I go for a walk in the morning and get some fresh air and be on my own.
Yeah.
It's so good.
Yeah.
I've never really walked this much before.
That's why we got the dogs.
And now we have the dogs. And I really do a lot more walking than I ever used to like doing.
No, I feel also though, and maybe you know about this, I feel it's like also a very emotional time. Mm-hmm. I feel like high emotions, like very sensitive.
Almost like your PMS almost.
Yeah. But
because it's a change in your estrogen.
Yeah, like going up and down, and like I could cry just like walking at nothing.
That's it. That's it. That's all of it. And but it's hormonal. Like there's not a lot you can do to control your emotional roller coaster. But you have to almost, you have to almost, like we were saying before, you have to accept it. You just
and just like surf the
around. You have to accept it. And understand that it's temporary, and this is happening, and it's almost beyond my control. The emotional roller coaster, but you know, it's how I'm feeling.
Can I tell a story? It's quite personal.
No.
So I had spent the day.
I'm gonna have to edit it out.
I had spent the day doing my taxes, and then I had scrubbed the floor on my hands and knees with like one of those Clorox towels, get all the dog grit off the floor. And then I'd gone downstairs. I'd done a bit of yoga, and then I'd stuffed all the dogs in the back of the car because we were going to have Easter dinner at Harmony's parents' house. And Harmony had spent the entire day doing a million fucking things with the kids, with the one child, with your mom, and then buying groceries, and then making a gravy.
Walking the dogs,
editing a podcast,
teaching a yoga class, sending out newsletter.
And you came out to the car with miso gravy in one hand and your laptop computer in your other, because you still had to edit the podcast on the way to Nan's, right? On the way to Grandma's. And you get into the car, you put the miso gravy on the hood of the car, and then went back to put the laptop in the back seat. And I thought, oh, that's not good. And it slid right off, and it fucking blew everywhere. And I was like, oh.
Miso gravy, not the computer.
The miso gravy is like, oh, shit. And she tore into me. Oh, she was mad at me. Oh, she was mad. Oh, my God. I was like, I really don't think this is fair. And you do fuck all day. And I was like, I did a lot today, and we were high-pitched in our voices. I'll just put it that way. And then we get back. I'm now I'm like cleaning the sidewalk of gravy, and she's having a snit, some like sulk in the car. We drive to Grandma's. I'm like, I'm not super happy about this whole situation. I'm not super happy to be going to Grandma's right now. We go to Grandma's, and I'm just like really quiet. I'm like, and then Harmony got really mad at me for being mad or being like quiet. And then she's like at home crying, you don't support me at all. I was like, I just was mad about you yelling at me. It wasn't my fault with the miso. And this is like an emotional fucking roller coaster we're on.
Okay, so I think what you have to understand is, A, the feelings that she's feeling are valid. She's just feeling them more than, you know what I mean? Like she's feeling, it's not made up. It's real stuff. She's just feeling it more intensely.
Yeah.
The hormones. And she can't control that.
That's right. It's out of my control.
But it's true. It's like the stuff it's like when you have PMS, you get upset about things that you wouldn't normally get really upset about, but they might annoy you normally. It's not like it's a new thing for you to be annoyed about. It's just you're feeling it more intensely.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what's going on there. She's just really, really feeling it very intensely. And it's not, it's like, it's so good if she can laugh about it after, but it's like, it's hard. It's a really hard place to be in. And when you think about Easter weekend, it's pretty, it's intense.
It's full on, as it is.
And when she's going to have that, have that episode or have those feelings, it's because she's exhausted, it's
exactly
that's what it is, you need to rest.
Yeah. Which is why it's so important to sleep.
As a cool joke, you can't sleep when your hormones are going up and down all the time. Like it's really hard to sleep.
Yeah.
So,
It's the perfect storm. It's so funny because I feel like It's just now, even Oprah's has something I saw online, like her O magazine or something's talking about perimenopause and menopause. And I feel like it's one of those topics that women never really talked about until like the last, I don't know, 3 years or something, or 5 years.
But people didn't talk about it, or maybe we weren't listening because it wasn't relevant.
That's right.
Yeah,
I don't know.
That's probably more right.
Yeah, but I don't think people have talked about it for a long time. I think it's a fairly recent thing that people have even looked into and started to understand. So they're still doing lots of studies around it, and there's not a lot of studies into it because it's recent. People just sort of ignored it before.
Yeah, because the doctors were men and it didn't matter to them.
I think women probably did talk to each other.
Maybe.
In history.
Yeah, maybe.
Well, I actually think women mostly were expected to act like it wasn't happening.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's like a cultural stigma.
Yeah, of being hormonal and emotional, which is actually just not, it's just beyond your control. I think that's, you can control your hormones by taking hormone bullets, that's it,
Yeah, women would end up in like Dr. Freud's office and then they'd get labeled as histrionic.
Histrionic. And then they'd get the vibrator out. That helped.
He did all kinds of weird things.
The vibrator helps. Oh, you're prudish. Never mind. I'm sorry. Forgive me. Didn't mean to go
but they
there.
I don't know. It wasn't the fact that Oprah's into it now all of a sudden, I feel like, okay,
it's going mainstream.
This is coming mainstream now. People are out. They're out and they're talking about it.
It's the menstrual mainstream. That's what's going on. Yeah.
It's always been mainstream. It's just been hidden. It's just
it's not like it's a new thing that's happening.
It's been something women have almost been ashamed of, I think, or just needed to hide.
Yeah.
Which, I mean, it's natural that it would evolve to suddenly come out into the open because people didn't used to talk about like periods and menstruation that much either. And then
it's true.
They started talking about that too, and it became just a normal conversation.
Yeah.
The extension of that.
I remember in India too, like women wouldn't talk about being pregnant even.
Really?
Yeah. They wouldn't talk about it until like the baby was there, basically.
Are you serious? I mean,
fascinating though.
Yeah.
Just like some of these topics don't really, I mean, I don't know. Women's health is like kind of a new area still.
Absolutely.
But there have been women for a long time. That's interesting.
No, but my women's health physio said when she decided, when she was at university, she did her master's and she told people that she wanted to do women's health, that people thought she was crazy. And she's like our age. She said no one was really doing it back then.
Yeah.
This is like, I guess 15 years ago. No one was focusing on it. There was no information. And she decided to open up a clinic that just treated women, and everyone said it would never work. Like,
right? Yeah.
Like, yeah. How are they any different to men? Well, in many ways. In many ways. But there was, very little research. And
almost no research, I think, on like women. Actually, all the studies, even like studies in energy levels and studies like sports medicine, it's all men.
It's all men.
The medicalization of nature, the turning women's health or any kind of notion with women's health into a crisis rather than a holistic growth practice, I think is you're looking at something that's like you've got this Victorian age of the creation of science and the creation of professional positions in English civilization, and it's all men doing that. But I just think that there have been women who have talked to each other and been midwives and had knowledge and shared knowledge going back way beyond that time.
Yeah.
Well, but there was no like real genuine research done into it. It's like on a scientific, medical basis, you know, like nobody really delved into it. Sure, there probably were conversations, like we can't measure that. You know, women would definitely have talked, but but there was no sort of basis for understanding why this was happening.
Right.
What it was.
You know, I think that's the root of what I'm talking about, is like this notion of whether about research being relevant to a conversation that women are having with each other.
I think it's totally relevant because if you can do research and find out that like eating more soy helps to decrease hot flashes and balance your hormones or something, right? Or that you need to build more muscle mass in order to stay balanced.
I would think that there's a midwife in Okinawa in 1600 who will tell you that that tofu is really helpful to your hot flashes.
No way. And yeah.
No. I think there's a woman in 1600 Okinawa, Japan, that says, "Oh yeah, tofu is very good for your hot flashes."
I don't think so.
I think it's also really useful to have proper explanations for why things are happening and for how long you can expect them to last.
Yeah.
Even if there were no cures for it, but to know that it's normal and to know, even though you get that through the conversations, but the experience is really quite different for different women.
And you don't even get it now. Like, honestly, I went and talked to my doctor. Like,
yeah, me too.
Like a month ago. No, 2 months ago. 3 months ago? 3 months ago. And we had just gone back. No, I guess it was 2 months ago. We had just gone back from COVID, from Florida. Florida and COVID are synonymous in my mind. And I had COVID. And so I had a phone conversation with her, and she was, you know, doing some prescriptions over the phone or whatever. And then she said, "Well, is there anything else that you want to talk about or anything else I should know?" And I said, "Oh, well, I haven't had my period for 60 days. So," and she's like, "Oh, well, maybe that's stress." And I said, "Or I could be going into menopause." "Well, maybe. You're a little young."
Oh.
And I'm like, "Okay, well, I guess we'll just," I said, "Shouldn't we do maybe some like hormone tests or something?" "No, if you don't get it in a few months, call back."
Oh my gosh. I have a really lovely GP. I'm not criticizing her, but our conversation was sort of similar. I mean, I'm not at that phase yet, but talking about some other symptoms, and she's like, "Oh," and she just gave me a piece of paper with some information on it, on some hormone therapy, and said, "You can look into this." And I was like, there was really there's no conversation around it. It's like, here's the information. This is the piece of paper with the information that I have.
Mm-hmm. Here's your brochure.
Here's your brochure for menopause.
Mm-hmm.
Perimenopause. And here, some good reading for you. And I think you would find, Russell, it actually is quite new that people are looking into this at all.
No, I absolutely agree with you. It's the I'm not really articulating. I wasn't really prepared to talk about the subject. Just that, obviously, the institution of medicine is biased by gender, given that the profession was created by men. But the notion of, conversely, health is, and women's health, I think is you could find as being held by women throughout history and conversations with each other.
I feel like, though, like maybe that was true, like in small communities or like Native American tribes or like places where there's like a female shaman type figure, but we haven't had that in our culture for, you feel like 200 years.
And I think that medicalization severed that conversation.
Yes, yeah, and I think women have largely been sort of meant to try and mask all of these symptoms, and that's just
and just like pretend that you're young still.
Yeah, pretend it's not happening. Don't talk about it. Just pretend, take this, and it will be like it's not even happening.
Yeah.
Take this.
But it's interesting because I'm having these conversations with so many women.
Yeah.
And I mean, maybe it's also like because I'm of the age that people feel like, let's talk about this. But I think also there is this growing awareness that we actually kind of need to talk about this and normalize it. And
this is a conversation we need to have.
Yeah,
absolutely. I agree.
Yeah,
I agree. And I'm finding the same thing. People are just starting to talk about it. It seems to be a conversation I'm having with everyone I speak to. I mean, it's also something that I'm looking into, so it comes up a lot. But but it is interesting and awesome to be going through this at this time in this era.
Yeah, totally. Yeah. And I think there's something too to like you were saying, like you know, we always talk about respecting your energy levels, and I think that that's like also something that's really important in this time, because I think if we weren't having these conversations, there might be more of a feeling like I should just push myself and keep doing it. And I think a lot of women have done that and continue to do that. And I think that the symptoms of like going through menopause are much worse when you do that.
Yes,
at least that's my experience. Like if I'm not sleeping good, if I'm not like, if I'm stressing out, if I'm burning the candle at both ends, and like, then it's like it all explodes, and like I'm getting like hot flashes, and it's like a mess.
But like the rest and the time for quiet and rest is so important.
Yeah,
because you may still not sleep, but like having that time, for yourself and for self-care is really important this time. You know, so many women leave their careers at this age as well because they feel like they can't keep up or like they're going to burn out.
Yeah.
Of women just leave what, you know, at the peak of their career, really.
Yeah. Totally.
Yeah.
Because it's exhausting.
And it's not accommodated.
No.
It's not accommodated in the workplace. It's not, you know, people feel like it needs to be masked.
Yeah.
And they're burning out.
Yeah, and I can see that even like, I mean, not to make this about social media and asana, but I feel that way with asana. I'm like, I don't need to keep up with 20-year-olds who have like boatloads of energy, or even 30-year-olds who have boatloads of energy, 0 children, 0 responsibilities, and 4 hours to practice every day.
And to sleep. In the middle
and like that's not a realistic expectation at this time and stage in my life.
No,
and this we were talking about before.
If I had 2 hours to myself every day, I wouldn't spend it like that either. It's not
exactly.
I think I've just come to this point where I'm like, there's more that I want to do with myself than spend 2 hours on my mat. You know, I want to live
100%. Yeah,
like life. I want to
totally. I want to leave the house and walk outside.
Yes, I want to participate in the world.
Yeah,
and all that is on offer.
Yeah,
I hear you completely with that. I don't feel that pressure anymore. That said, like we were talking about with the looking back at that young person, I long for those days. I really do long for those days, practices, and those days.
I know,
like all of it. It's.
It's like a battle though, right? Where you kind of like catch yourself going back and forth with it. Like, I wish I, you know, had that time, and like, and then you're like, well, that's just not even a reality. So.
Yeah, or like you try, like one day I'll get on the mat and I'll like try and push myself, and I'm like, no, you know what?
I can't do it.
I can't do it.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, actually, no.
Yeah, I understand.
But I'm not going to do it. And I look back at when Indy was little. I mean, you would have done this as well. But when she was a baby, I used to get up at 4 o'clock in the morning and practice before she got up at 6.
Yeah.
So I'd do this practice, and then I'd get up and run around after her all day.
Yeah.
And then go to bed and just do it again, like a mouse in a wheel.
I know.
And then there's no break. Yeah.
Yeah.
Lots of stay.
I know.
And but those are the days.
I have a question for you. Just to before we break, I was going to ask you about gymnastics, but I think I'm going to leave that to one side. It seemed like you have a whole other career that wasn't teaching yoga, that wasn't in the theater, that wasn't as recruiting.
Oh,
sales.
You were a qualified strategic psychotherapist.
Oh no, I studied. I have. It's not a career that I've worked in, but I've studied it. I studied.
And you're a clinical hypnotherapist.
Yes, it's the same. It's one qualification.
Oh, I see.
Yeah.
Well, it seemed like you could have done that.
I could have. You know what?
She might still.
I can use that in what I'm doing. But after this accident, and I just felt like everything was sort of taken away, and I started from zero. And I was in this position where I had to make decisions. And everyone was like, what do you want to do? The insurance company, like, what are you going to do? You need to find work. I was speaking to a psychologist, like, what are you going to do? We need to find work. You need to, make decisions. And it was a position I never really wanted to be in. And suddenly I'm finding myself like, what do I want to do? What am I going to do? And I studied, I was super interested in that because I find hypnotherapy fascinating and really helpful in conjunction with other modalities. But so I just decided to study that. Well, not long after I'd had this accident, just because I needed to do something. Right. And I found it really helpful on a personal level. And actually I find it helpful regularly, but it's not what I want to do.
Okay.
It's just not what I want to do. And funnily enough, I then went on and decided I'm going to do business coaching. Because I had started my own businesses and I wanted to help women start their own businesses, particularly mums. And then I built this whole business around it and then realized, oh no, that is not what I want to do. What I want to do is study nutrition. And it was the first thing I came to after the accident, when the questions started coming up. Yeah. I said, I want to study nutrition. I want to either study nutrition or speech therapy. And the people who were advising me at the time, and you have to have some context here because I was in a very low place. Like I was quite, I was not really that capable of making good, solid decisions for myself. I was coming out of a real place of fear and of a need, like I need to find something to do, not what do I want to do. Right. And that was like one of the things that I knew I could do. And using that psychotherapy and, you apply it for the mindset training. And I built this whole business around that, business coaching, and then took on a couple of clients before I realized, what was I thinking? This is not me. This was never me. Like I was, it's not me at all. I'm not interested in this. Yeah. It's just something that I thought I could do. And then when I started feeling, I guess, a lot better physically and mentally, emotionally, and a lot more like myself, I started to realize, actually, I always knew what I wanted to do. It's always what I wanted to do. It was something that I had been thinking about studying many times over the last sort of 10 years. So,
That's
but
awesome.
it does inform what you do, though, these other modalities.
It can be part of it for sure. Yeah. It'll all be a piece of the puzzle. So I'm looking at what I'm going to put together is using some of the movement stuff and some of the mindfulness and, using the nutrition and putting together a full package to help women in this period. Not just food. Like we're saying. It's not, there's a whole lot going on. It's taking knowing how to listen to your body, like so many.
Because I could imagine like giving up drinking a bottle of wine every night. Like a bit of hypnotherapy could really be really helpful.
Probably just fall asleep.
Yeah, and also
just like maybe just a small sip.
Very involved still with nutrition piece. You see,
it could be helpful. People use it for quitting smoking a lot.
Yeah, I know.
Oh, really?
Our friend Sarah from England was a hypnotherapist. Is a hypnotherapist.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. We had her on the show. So So is your business now, is it fully formed, and can people find you and
it's not fully formed. I wish it was. It is being formed as we speak. So I don't know when this will go live.
But they can reach out to you, I'm sure.
Reach out to me and find me on Instagram, and and I will have my website up live soon. So I'm not really qualified yet.
Okay, well, we'll look forward to that. And how can people find you on Instagram?
Add it to the show notes.
Nadia.
You do have Nadia.
I've got the website.
Rihani.
It's not all the information.
Okay. So Nadia Stinga Rihani on Instagram.
On Instagram, yeah.
Okay,
and my website will be nadiarihani.com.
And there's an enormous number of pictures and photographs of your beautiful children, and I think you married Jesus on Easter, no less. That's
on good. Easter, no.
He's a beautiful, beautiful Jesus-like man. It's very nice.
Very nice.
Yeah.
Is he still teaching yoga?
He's teaching privately, but not teaching. You know what? We just didn't want to teach. He didn't want to teach in the early mornings anymore. It was like, it's not. Yeah, so he has actually gone on and studied to become a migration agent.
Oh, wow. To help people to migrate to
Australia.
Immigrate to Australia.
Yeah, it's like 5 languages.
Oh my gosh.
I'm really interested in migration and all of this.
Wow.
Yeah.
Oh,
and he's still private and streets and stuff like that. So.
Yeah.
Nice.
Well, he'd be the first person I'd want to see if you were
going to migrate to Australia
or walk through the pearly gates or whatever, you know.
I'll let him know. Nice to see you guys.
So beautiful to see you too. Yeah. Thank you so much for coming on and having such a fun conversation.
Thank you guys.
I'm sure women around the world will be very intrigued.
I'd listen to the show.
Oh, and men.
I'm sure.
Especially men with wives in their 40s.
That's a whole other show.
It's a whole other show.
It's a whole other show.
Oh, have a good night, guys. I hope you get lots of sleep.
Thank you.
I appreciate it. Thank you, Nadia.
Thanks for listening to this episode of Finding Harmony with me, your host, Harmony Slater. You can find out more information on my website, harmonyslater.com, and I look forward to connecting with you again soon.
Standing in eternity's shadow, watching the breaking waves. There's a hard wind and the soil